to another great episode of Scandal Queens. It is me, EB, your host, and we are going to be talking a good one today, a juicy one today, one that I think we probably all ask ourselves about probably half a dozen times a week at least if you're a pop culture head. They say that love is blind, but in Hollywood, it's usually contractually obligated and accompanied by a 4K shot by paparazzi in a parking lot. That's right, we are talking PR relationships today. Fake relationships, fake it till you make it, faux-mances, pro-mances, celebrities signing contracts to be in love with each other. Why are we obsessed with Timothée Chalamet and Kylie being together? Why does Tavis feel so absolutely fake? Well, that's because more than often these relationships are, and we are going to break it all down today. The signs to look for, the history of PR relationships and where they come from, and why is it important? Why does it matter? Why do we really need to pay attention to what these PR relationships are trying to As usual, before we get into things, let's have a real quick temperature check and look at this week's hottest whispers. And right off the top, we have Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi. Wow, since we're talking PR relationships, let's talk Margot Robbie, Jacob Elordi, and this hot mess of a Wuthering Heights movie that is going to come out. Wow, you want to talk about dumpster fire. This whole thing has all the trademarks of a dumpster fire. First and foremost, I personally, as a woman who tries to be self-possessed and kind of strong in her own way, have been disgusted by the way Margot is going about and marketing this movie, how she's doing her press. The first big interview that came out was her talking about how she had quote unquote become codependent on Jacob. How when they were filming the movie, she was just looking for him everywhere and she just couldn't do a thing without him. It was the most pathetic thing I'd ever read in my life. And while I'm sitting there reading it, I'm thinking to myself, this woman is a whole ass mother. This is the mother of a human child saying these things. And she's married too, I believe. So she's got like a husband and a kid at home and she's sitting in this thing being like, for months I was just up Jacob Elordi's asshole. It's the weirdest, most uncomfortable thing. She comes off as completely weak and pathetic, which again, it's fine if you're gonna play Catherine that way in Wuthering Heights, but you don't need to go on the press tour and be that. You know what I mean? Like, it's really giving weak and pathetic and kind of gross. Really, really, really gross and male-centered. She did another interview where she is talking about, oh, it's so great. I showed it to a room full of my closest 20 best friends, which you want to do this. She sounds like Ramona Singer in this interview where she's like, I showed my 20 best female friends, my 20 best girlfriends, an early screening of this movie, and they just went feral. They would have eaten Jacob Elordi alive. And it's like, wow, you watched porn with a room full of 20 other women? That's really weird. It's really gross and weird. But again, it just comes off as this like really, it hits all the wrong notes, all this press that she's doing. And then you just couple that with the movie itself, which just literally looks like the most ridiculous, horrific rendition of Wuthering Heights that's ever been done ever. It's like comically bad. A part of you almost wants an explanation of like, is this performance art? Is this Emerald Fennell doing performance art and it, like holding up a mirror to society by turning Wuthering Heights into cartoon fantasy porn? The whole thing is a mess. So I guess we're going to see how this turns out, but I think we definitely are going to need to pay attention to these dynamics of Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi and this weak codependent thing that she is projecting coincidentally in a time when everything's going right wing and women are being marginalized more and more and more. It smacks of gross. The whole thing smacks. Also in the Hollywood rumor mill, we've got Aperture season. That is right. Harry Styles has released a new single called Aperture, and along with it, he has announced a new tour. Now, there's a few things that are going on with this. There is some PR relationship stuff, which we'll get to in just a second. But what's also kind of happened as he kicks off this album and tour launch playbook is there's been a huge backlash because his ticket prices are on par now with Taylor Swift. It's absolutely absurd. And I cannot believe anyone would pay that much money to like stand in a box, in a sweaty box with thousands and thousands of people rubbing up against them, pressing up against them, to listen to a man in tight pants lip sync auto-tuned bad music. It's very odd to me, but his fans have backlashed. They're very angry about the ticket prices. They're very angry about his, because he's aligned himself lately as being like, I'm for the people and I want people to be able to afford things. And then he's got crazy expensive tickets when we know he doesn't have to. If he wanted his tickets to be affordable, they could be. The Cure did this. They fought back against Ticketmaster, won, got refunds for a bunch of their fans. It can happen. These celebrities want as much money as possible, so they're charging $1,400 for tickets to see them quote unquote perform. They're lip syncing and kind of just running back and forth versus anything else, but it's an absolute mess. Now, here's where this kind of ties into the PR relationship stuff that we're going to talk in today's episode. Right on time, you've got stories being pumped out about Harry Styles and Zoe Kravitz. Just days ago, Zoe Kravitz is in the press going, Harry Styles is my soulmate. And it all just smacks. Again, it's drawing publicity to him and his single and his tour and his album. But at the same time, it creates this kind of manipulative aura around them, which makes women who love that kind of stuff flock to it and go, oh yes, this is great. They're in love. They're soulmates. I'm going to listen to all the music because maybe I'll find the Easter eggs in it. It's so fucking manipulative, especially because it just doesn't feel real. So we'll see how this plays out, the kind of fallback on his ticket prices. But this whole like him and Zoe Kravitz in the news again, it is the literal album tour playbook. It's the same thing Taylor Swift does. It's the same thing that all of them. And last but not least, there is rumors that Olivia Rodrigo and Louis Partridge have split. And what's also interesting about this is, of course, it's accompanied with rumors. Hey, the contract expired January 1st. Time to kick and start a new launch of whatever the new thing is going to be. This isn't getting the ratings and the views, so it's time to move on for bigger ratings and bigger views. Is that what's going on? I don't know. I think Olivia tends to be a little bit more genuine than a lot of the other quote unquote pop stars that we're used to. But who knows? I believe that most of the relationships that we see written about in TMZ or People magazine, I would not be surprised if one day, 40 years from now, when their memoirs all come out, we find out that a lot of these are PR relationships. All right, let's talk about it. Let's get into it. Hollywood, PR relationships, the pro-mances, the faux-mances. What are we talking about? What is this? Well, it's exactly what you think it is. It's two celebrities who get together in order to boost their bottom lines, to rocket their celebrity star, to hide something they don't want the public to know about. There are a lot of different reasons, but one thing is certain. PR relationships in Hollywood are not new. This is old. It goes back all the way to the golden age of Hollywood, and I can guarantee it goes back way further than that because celebrities aren't new. But yeah, the old Hollywood studio system, the PR relationship was a tool that was used all the time. Back in those days, think 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. The studios actually owned the artists. Like they owned the actors physically. They could tell them what to do, how to look. They could do anything they want with them. And this still pretty much goes on. There was a recent interview with Rose McGowan in which she was talking about her father saw one of her films and he went and basically was trying to get a hold of Harvey Weinstein in the theater and was like, you're not going to do this to my daughter. I'm not going to allow this to happen. And he was told point blank, according to Rose McGowan, and he was told by producers, we own her. We own her body, and we decide what happens to it. It's none of your business. There's nothing you can do about it. She signed the papers. So this is how Hollywood started, and this is what it's kind of rooted in. And that was something that Hollywood studios used to do all the time. They would send actors out on dates. They would send, it was good to be seen with Marilyn Monroe, or it was good to be seen on a date with Audrey Hepburn or Katharine Hepburn. The list goes on and on and on. And they did this. They did this a lot because people would rush to buy papers and then they would want to go and see the movie if the two of them are in it together. It created a buzz around the film. But what was also very common in these old Hollywood studios was using their control over the actors to force lavender marriages. Now, back then, obviously, studios were way more conservative. America was way more conservative. And there was even laws against things like homosexuality. You could be arrested for things like that. So being gay, for example, in Hollywood was a no-no. back in the golden age of Hollywood. So when they had actors who were homosexual, bisexual, transgender, any of those things, it had to be hidden. It had to be hidden, especially if the studio was making a lot of money. So they would put the actors in what was called a lavender marriage in order to conceal their sexualities. This is not an uncommon thing. There are so many memoirs of these actors that you could go and pick up and read, people who knew them. The list goes on and on. One of the big examples that I always think about is Rock Hudson. I loved Rock Hudson as a kid. I still remember, I think the first time I saw him on TV, my mom turned over to AMC and it was like in the middle of a movie. And I went, who is that? Like just an absolutely beautiful, beautiful, beautiful man. But Rock Hudson was pretty much in Hollywood known to be a homosexual man. It was a secret, but it was kind of an open secret. If you knew him, if you were inside any of these studios, you knew what the truth was. Well, one day, the magazine, I think it was a magazine, it might have been a paper, but I believe it was a magazine called Confidential, and it would report on this kind of Hollywood gossip and scandal and stuff. They got a hold of Rock Hudson and his managers, and they told him, we know that you're gay. We're publishing the story. We're going to tell everyone in America that you're a gay man. So the studios, and presumably Rock Hudson, panicked and rushed him into a marriage with Phyllis Gates, who was a secretary. I believe she was a secretary for the studio. Cannot remember which studio it was. There was, it was one of the big ones. Maybe Fox? Was it Fox? It was probably either Fox or MGM. Anyway, they rushed Rock Hudson into this marriage to Phyllis Gates to try to calm the rumors and make sure he can still sell and make movies. Now, unfortunately, that marriage did not work, and it didn't quell all of the rumors, but it kind of beat the heat down on what would have ultimately gotten him completely canceled. He could have had his life destroyed. Someone would have hunted him down and potentially harmed him. There's no end to what could have happened if he didn't kind of keep up appearances, as it were. So that's one really, really famous example of a known lavender marriage that was going on in Hollywood. But then you also had rumors about people like Katharine Hepburn and Stanley Turner. They were together for like 20 or 30 years, and people they were ambiguous about it because they didn't walk around wearing rings. They didn't ever live in the same house together, but people who were in the know, and after they had passed on, they were the ones who told the stories about Katharine had her lifestyle that she liked to lead, and he had his lifestyle that he liked to lead, and they loved each other very much. They were best friends. They were dear to each other. And the rumor is that they were beards for each other so that they could live their lives, have their careers, and have these lives that they wanted, the actual lives that they wanted in a time when that wasn't accepted and when that could have ruined them. So this is a long-standing thing. PR relationships in order to manipulate public opinion, make sure that studios and celebrities can keep making money. This is an established fact. This is not conspiracy. This is on the books, in print, black and white. We've got letters, we've got photos, we've got memoirs, we've got interviews. These things happen, and they still happen to this very day. And once you're in a place of acceptance with that, when you understand that PR relationships with celebrities are a factual thing, they happen. The next logical question that you ask yourself is why? Like, why would someone sign up for that? To live a life that's not true, that's not authentic? Why would studios, managers, agents, why would they take the risk? Because if that's ever exposed as fake, that's going to come with a lot of backlash, perhaps more backlash than just living authentically would have done, especially in today's day and age. And like, why do we eat it up? Why do we play along with these lies? There's a few different reasons for it. The first and most obvious reason, which we've already kind of touched on, is now, in this day and age, which the old Hollywood studios, it was a lot about controlling reputation, right? And now it's about making sure that the celebrity is as consumable as possible. That's one of the big differences. So that changes some of the reasons. The first big reason that these celebrities engage in these PR relationships, straight up 100%, is for product launches. Whether it's a skincare line or it's the movie that they're working on that the studio doesn't want to fail, or, whatever it is, there's usually something being launched, a tour, an album, whatever. Taylor Swift does a lot of her relationships and her breakups specifically around album productions and tours and all of that kind of stuff. She likes to have man candy on her arm when she's on tour to kind of flash around to make sure people know that she is wanted by men, and so therefore important. That is an important thing to her. But she's not the only one that does it. They all do it. Another big reason that these celebrities engage in PR relationships, and again, we'll use Taylor Swift as an example here, is image cleanup. It is for an image cleanup. It's not just for image manipulation, it is for image cleanup. Taylor Swift got with Matt Healy, and there was a huge blowback from her fans. That was the first time any of us had ever seen Swifties actually blow back against Taylor Swift, because Matt Healy said some horrible things, some horribly racist things about Asian women. He bragged about watching pornography in which black women got called the N-word and were degraded, like it was race degradation. It was just disgusting stuff that he was quite proud of. He threw a Nazi salute on stage, and as we know now, all his bandmates are Nazi sympathizers and really into that kind of thing. So there was an obvious blowback against Taylor Swift because she had built this whole brand on Miss Americana and speaking up and doing the right thing and being an activist and getting people to vote. And then all of a sudden she was with this guy who was associated with a bunch of right-wing stuff. It was not good for the brand, especially when she was launching a tour. That was when the Eras tour was starting, and she had a new album and all that, the Tortured Poets Department, all of that crap, okay? So what happens? Within 3 months of the blowback, Maddie is gone. He is out of the picture. They started scrubbing articles because there was articles being released at the start of their relationship that she called him her soulmate. All kinds of crazy stuff. That all gets swept under the rug, and all of a sudden, she's with Travis Kelce, Mr. Americana, big Mr. Football, Mr. America. It was absolutely orchestrated from the tip to the toe to wash away the stink of this openly racist Matt Healy associations that she had. Because at the same time, she had all these associations about her own racism that was going on. There was a blogger who wrote about the dog whistles that is laced through her music and through her videos. She tried to sue that blogger into silence, who, yes, it was a black woman who had written the article. The ACLU had to get involved. People were bringing up this picture. There's pictures of her hugging a man wearing a swastika, like all kinds of stuff. She's got all these right-wing associations. So people were like, Maddie Healy's racist, and people say you're racist. Are they maybe telling the truth? So boom, right away, she's in a relationship with Travis Kelce, who up until her had pretty much exclusively dated black women, and who up until her had himself acted in many ways as though he were a member of the black community as well. He put on the affectations. We all know the type. So this could arguably, their relationship together could arguably be an image clean, right? It wipes the stink away for her of Matt Healy, puts her back in that America's sweetheart dating the captain of the football team. And at the same time, it pulled Travis away from his associations with the black community during a time in which that community was going to be even more attacked than it already was, and even more marginalized than it already was by this right-wing wave that was coming for the country. It's all very, very questionable, but it's not new. Celebrities do this kind of stuff all the time. 9 times out of 10, these PR relationships aren't just about selling, they're about manipulating you, changing the way you see things, changing the way your brain thinks, changing your beliefs that you have about reality, which is just very, very dangerous and very, very crazy that we allow that to go. Now, last but not least, the third reason that you see these PR relationships happen is because they are beards. Still to this day, even though we are a much more open society, when you are on a main consumable platform like an A-list celebrity, they want you to be as bland as possible so you appeal to as many people as possible. And in Hollywood's eyes, that includes being either sexually mainstream or ambiguous enough that no one can really put their thumb down on what's going on, which again is just as bigoted as the whole act of putting, anyway, the whole thing is a fucking mess, but that is still extremely common. That is still going to be as common as it was in old Hollywood. There will be just as many closeted celebrities now as there were back then, and just as many relationships which are meant to hide that from you. So let's look at a quick case study, and there is one celebrity PR relationship which was the dumbest, biggest, clumsiest mess out of all the celebrity PR relationships, and perhaps more than any other celebrity PR relationship. This is the one that we can put our thumbs on and go, this is the scam, this is the fraud that these celebrities run with a PR relationship. What am I talking about? Kim Kardashian and Chris Humphries. If you were there, you will remember it. There was no choice but to, it was all over magazines. It was a 3-hour or like a 3-section TV extravaganza. It was like the royal wedding. It was literally everywhere. I think I remember seeing a billboard for it in Florida at one point about like watching the premiere. Absolutely insane. Chris Humphries was a very popular NBA player at the time, and then Kim Kardashian was Kim Kardashian. She was stealing from Brandy's credit cards and doing sex tapes and being Paris Hilton's best friend at this time, okay? So then she gets offered this wedding. She's going to get married to Chris Humphries. They have this whirlwind romance. In August of 2011, they get married. Big deal. They make a ton of money, allegedly. Like I said, there's a 3-section wedding event special. The engagement was also its own episode and its own special. There's all these brand deals. There's all these advertisements and partnerships. There was just a ton of stuff. Fast forward to 72 days later, October of the same year, Chris Humphries files for an annulment. Why would he want to get an annulment and not a divorce? Well, according to what he filed, it was because of fraud. Because Kim Kardashian and her mother had frauded him into a marriage that she never intended to stay in. That is correct. Chris Humphries claims that he was devastated to discover that the whole thing had been a scam and that Kim had just done the whole thing for money. And in the 2 years that it took for him to get that divorce from Kim Kardashian, we found out that that was very, 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 very true. Because as it turns out, Kim Kardashian, off of the wedding alone, when it came to her relationship with Chris Humphries, just the wedding, she made more than $17 million. $17 million, of which he didn't get a single stinking penny. She got like $1.1 million for the first rights to the wedding photos, which went in like People magazine or something like that. She got another like 15 million in sponsorships and partnerships and advertisers and through the TV show, brand deals, all this kind of stuff. She made a ton of money and her celebrity went through the roof. She was on the cover, like I said, of every magazine. They were all over the commercials every 5 seconds on TV. It was a 3-episode event for the wedding itself, on top of the engagement episode and all the other episodes about their relationship. She made a ton of money off of it. She made an absolute killing. And as all of this information came out, Chris started revealing more and more stuff. Like, he proposed to her, and then Kim made him reshoot the proposal because she didn't like her reaction to it. The proposal was fake. And that was allegedly when he had the first red flag. But he thought, no, this woman is really in love with me. Look at this. I have the most beautiful woman in the world. We're going to be together forever. Yay, yay, yay. Not the case. That man walked away with nothing after 2 years of fighting and being scammed and exploited by that family straight up for money. And it also manipulated Kim's public image, right? It cleaned her up because until that marriage, Kim was basically just known as an inflatable doll that was passed around between rappers and athletes. Like, that was it. She had gone from Ray J tape to man to man to man to man to man. She was a joke. When she went on TV, she was always made a joke of. She was always just a sex doll. So for her to then have a marriage, people in the public, people who were not paying attention to the fact that they're being manipulated, went, oh, well, look at that. She's going to settle down. She's going to have a family. Maybe she's not the whore. Maybe you can turn the whore into a housewife. And it was all just a game. It was all just a lie. It was an absolute manipulation. They wanted to change her image so that she can then shift into business and then probably law and eventually politics. I think that's been the long-term goal for a long, long time. And they wanted you to give them money. And we did it. We all played along. And the whole thing was a fraud. The whole thing was a fraud. And people on the inside got actually really hurt by this and didn't even know they were taking part in it. So it's just this whole horrible, disgusting mess. But it is the case study when it comes to celebrity PR relationships. And it is the case study that you should hand to anyone when you say, I'm suspicious about this celebrity relationship. And I think they're trying to do something manipulative here. This is the relationship you should point. So how do you know when you're looking at a celebrity PR relationship? Well, there's a few things you should ask yourself. One, look at the pictures, right? If they're being photographed on a private beach and they seem very, very relaxed and at peace, those photographers who took those pictures were invited there, okay? Otherwise, the celebrities would look freaked out and there would be police in the pictures taking those people away, or the pictures never would have been posted in the first place. Think about the logistics of what you're looking at. If someone's covered in labels and they have perfect glam makeup and glammed hair on, and they're being shot in 4K in a parking lot, it's probably scheduled. And if it's scheduled, it's meant to manipulate what you think. And if it's manipulating what you think, you always have to ask yourself why. Number 2, make sure you look at the timing of things. When are these stories coming out? If all of a sudden you see a ton of stories about Travis and Taylor coming out at a time when her racist and sex abuse mocking text messages come out, you should probably question why. Like, why are they trying to flood People magazine with stories about her wedding being off when we have these really problematic texts in which she mocked sexual assaults and engaged in some racist conversation about someone who wasn't in the room? These are conversations that we need to have, and when they are trying to drown them out with look at this romance, you have to stop and ask yourself why, and question if it's a PR relationship. And last but not least, look at the chemistry. Chemistry says everything. It says absolutely everything. When you're being pumped full of stories that soulmates can't keep their hands off of each other, and then every time you see the two of them together, they look like an awkward brother and sister who would rather be in any other room besides that one that they're in together, you're probably looking at a PR relationship. So why does this all matter? Because celebrities at their heart are tools of distraction, and that is the best case scenario. They are tools of distraction. And worst case scenario, they are tools of conditioning and conversion for you. These relationships don't just manipulate what you buy or what you pay attention to. They also manipulate the things you believe about yourself and your own personal relationships. They, through their lies, set unattainable goals for you that you continue to chase and that cause you unhappiness. That is dangerous, and it puts you in dangerous positions, especially if you are a celebrity. Relationships 9 times out of 10 are business mergers, but they are also a tool for manipulation and mind control in the most not MK Ultra way, just in the most basic way. They are brand collaborations. They are not goals to aspire to. They are not the truth. They are not authenticity in any way, shape, or form. They are fantasy and delusion that is packaged up and wrapped in a nice little bow to make you spend your money through focusing your attention on things that are not real. But I want to leave you with a few questions, and they're questions that I ask myself when it comes to this PR relationships and how we deal with them and what we should do and how we should speak about them. And here are the questions. Here's what I want you to really think about. Number 1, if these relationships become real, does that make it okay? Does that make it right? Say 2 celebrities are put in a relationship together and they eventually do catch feelings for each other and decide to stay together. Is that okay? Does that negate the fact that they manipulated you to sell you something? I don't know. I don't want to say they can't be together, but I don't know. That's something that I want you to consider. Also, I want you to think about this. Are we actually victims of this? Or is this a performance that we demand? I don't know that that's something that you could answer for like the whole species. I think that that's probably an individual case. I think some people probably consume for the sake of consuming. Some people probably do want to see that. They won't engage with a celebrity if they don't get that kind of stupid, superficial romance. It's not an easy one to answer. I know what our answer as a species should be, but it is going to be different for every single person because everyone's got a different point of view. But at the end, we do have to kind of ask that. Like, we're not entirely the victims in this because we keep playing the game. Last but not least, in this age of quote-unquote authenticity and social media and everybody quote-unquote showing their lives on their screens, on their little glowing phones, is it even possible for an A-list celebrity to have a private relationship? Can they not lead these relationships out in the open? Can they move like normal people? Can they keep things behind the covers without signing NDAs and scheduled pap walks? Again, I think that it probably is possible. I think when you've got enough money, you can probably have whatever kind of life you want. But that's something that I want to know from you. What do you think? Is it even possible for these A-list celebrities to have relationships that aren't plastered all over the news? Let me hear your answer to these questions over on Instagram and on TikTok. I also have a deep dive into this on Substack, which is available now over on my Substack. You can click the link in any of my social media profiles at The Real E.B. Johnson, and they will take you straight there. It's a deep dive into these PR relationships, a little bit more of a look at the history, at how they affect us, why they affect us, and why we should really pay attention to how we are being affected by these PR relationships. It's a really great conversation, and I think that you should dive in, take part. Let me know what you think, and I might share it on a future episode. So the next time you see your favorite unlikely couple accidentally holding hands outside a Nobu, I just want you to stop, take a deep breath, and remember that someone somewhere is probably checking a calendar and waiting for that contract to hit its expiration date or waiting for a check to drop. Love may be a battlefield, but in Hollywood, it's mostly just a line item in a budget. And that's important for all of us to remember, especially for those of you who in any way set celebrity relationships as some kind of goal that you strive to achieve. And that's going to be it for me today. Thank you so much for listening. If you found a suspicious pap walk, some suspicious relationship signs that you think I should take a look at, tag me. And remember, you can follow all the chaos on Instagram and on TikTok at Scandal Queens Podcast and at The Real E.B. Johnson. And if you want to keep this tea brewing and support my work across my blog and social media and here with the podcast, please head over to patreon.com/Nooska and join my community. I've got lots more stuff there. I post the deep dive breakdowns of these topics, and I've got other exclusive content that's going to be coming out over there, including some unedited, uncensored voice memos. So make sure you head over to patreon.com/Nooska. You can listen to my other podcasts and help support this if you love what we do. And make sure you're following on Apple and Spotify. Leave a 5-star review if you like what you've heard today. And again, just thank you so much. It really means a lot that you guys listen, that you're having fun, and that you're thinking about the way we ingest and consume these celebrities. So, until next time, stay scandalous, queens. Bye-bye.